Imagine this. You're sitting in a coffee shop and you see a person wearing a red cap and a t-shirt with something about guns and Jesus, talking to another person who's wearing a headband, a t-shirt with a tree on it, and a cross tattoo on his arm. And they are really getting into it. Whatever they're talking about, they are passionate, to say the least. You stand up to leave about the same time as they do. Outside the coffee shop, they smile at each other and are about to shake hands, but they switch to one of those hugs instead. And then they walk off in opposite directions. This is impossible, right? It pretty much is in our world because we are so bent. But this kind of thing is possible. I have an example from 2,000 years ago where people felt as strongly or more so about issues, but they insisted on parting as friends. I say they may have felt more strongly about their positions because they were Jewish rabbis disagreeing about how to interpret and apply the Torah. If you know anything about these guys, you know that they took the Torah extremely seriously. A Machloket is a disagreement between two different interpretations of Torah law. Two of the biggest names in Torah disputes in the 1st century BC were Hillel and Shammai. Hillel was known for pursuing peace, and Shammai was known for his stricter interpretations of Jewish law. That sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? A little like our disagreements in the church today? So how were Hillel and Shammai and their disciples able to part amicably where we are unable to do so? The key is in this passage from Pirkei Avot, a foundational text in Jewish ethics. Sorry about the pronunciation. Every dispute that is for the sake of heaven will in the end endure, but one that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. Which is the controversy that is for the sake of heaven? Such was the controversy of Hillel and Shammai. And which is the controversy that is not for the sake of heaven? Such was the controversy of Korah and all his congregation. So there are two kinds of arguments. Those that are for the sake of heaven, like those between Hillel and Shammai, and those that are not for the sake of heaven, like Korah and all his congregation. You remember Korah. He was a Levite who had problems with Moses and Aaron's leadership after the Hebrews left Egypt. Korah gathered together 250 of his cronies, who also had authority issues, and claimed everybody was equally holy. So why are Moses and Aaron the boss? Moses proposed a test with incense offerings, but God intervened. He caused the earth to open up and swallow Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and then fire came down and consumed all the rest of the rebels. So everyone knew that Moses and Aaron were God's choice for the role of leader. The disagreement created by Korah was not for the sake of heaven. It was for the sake of power. So what are these disagreements for the sake of heaven? Or what in Hebrew is called Machloket el Shem Shamayim. Machloket el Shem Shamayim is a constructive disagreement. Constructive. The idea is that you engage in respectful and purposeful debate aimed at uncovering the truth, rather than simply trying to win the argument. Do you see that? Truth is the point, and not winning. When the purpose is the truth, the focus of the debate will be about the issue of the disagreement, and not on defeating the other person. This is for the sake of heaven. In our culture, we have lots of disagreements, but we are not really all that interested in the truth anymore. Not ultimately. Look at our politicians. Some talk about issues, but way too many talk about the other person. And accepting this as the model, their disciples take up the same tactics on the internet. If you are interested in the truth, you will not be mudslinging. So if you hear anything like this in an argument, that argument is not for the sake of heaven. A person who says these things is not interested in the truth. They are all about winning and power. We have a choice. We can argue for the sake of heaven, or we can argue for the sake of me, for the sake of power, in order to win. The way of Korah. Our world will be the world, but Christians, they should disagree another way. Here's a list of things that you will find when people are seeking the truth in an argument. Participants will show respect toward each other, despite their disagreements, and there will be a willingness to consider opposing viewpoints, and even to modify one's own opinion if presented with compelling evidence or reasoning. The approach to these debates is marked by graciousness and humility. The process will end up bridging differences rather than creating divisions, and it will often lead to a deeper understanding of complex issues. It might surprise you that you can disagree with someone and still maintain respect and friendship. It's actually true that the students of Hillel were known to teach both their own ideas and those of Shammai, sometimes even prioritizing Shammai's opinions. If we in the church disagree for the sake of heaven, we might end up being salt and light in the world. This has always been God's plan, right? For his people to be different than the world, standing in the truth, which is not one position in an argument, but in a person. Jesus Christ. He's the truth. Remember this. The story of Korah's rebellion in Numbers 16 tells us what may happen if we argue for the sake of power or stand too close to those who do. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.